Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of From Page to Stage. I'm your host, Wendy Corner, and this podcast is for you if you're an entrepreneur. Yes, page, stage, entrepreneur, they go together because you may have a solo book out, you may have a contributory chapter in somebody else's book, you may have a blog, but if you're an entrepreneur, I can guarantee you've got socials, haven't you? And what's that if it's not published work? What about the stage side? You might think, oh, I couldn't do this public speaking thing. I'm shy. I'm an introvert. You can have a one-on-one conversation with somebody. You can do a podcast, just like we're doing today. Just saying. Welcome. You're in the right place. Now, I'm excited. We got the memo. We're in red. Camie and I are on the same wavelength. I'd love to introduce you to Camie Hodlmair. Yes. Isn't that a wonderful name? Camie Hodlmair. Now, I could tell you a little bit about her, but she knows herself far better than I do. So, Camie, here we go. Here's a buck. I'm passing it to you. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you've got to where you are today.
Wendy, thank you so much for having me here. I am thrilled at this opportunity to share my story and hopefully make connections with other entrepreneurs, writers, speakers who are looking to make their space in the world. Excuse me, I have a very indirect path to writing and public speaking. My formal education and my 25-year career up to this point has focused on healthcare. I'm a physical therapist or a physiotherapist. And I love the therapies portion of healthcare. It is a very unique and special element of the healthcare system. We get the opportunity to meet people when they are vulnerable, in pain, frightened, maybe a little bit grumpy because they are vulnerable, in pain, and frightened. And our job is to listen to them and tease out what's important to them and what brought them to this place and develop a plan together to get them back to the quality of life that they're seeking. Now, one might think that a physiotherapist or a physical therapist has no business being an author or a speaker. And I thought that myself for a while, actually. I thought, what in the world? And about a year and a half ago, I was invited by a dear friend to join a startup company that focuses on leadership training. And just by nature of this friendship, they asked me to read some of their content, read some of their material. And I read it and I gave some feedback. And they loved my feedback.
Right.
And I had some ideas on how they could broaden their reach a wider group of, a wider audience. And I thought, consider these types of elements or these projects or this tone or this complement to your work. Because the Keystone book, Connection Cures Contention, had already been written. It had already been published. It was written by a gentleman named Richard Godfrey, who's the founder of this leadership training platform.
Okay.
And he's well established in that sphere. And I suggested a companion piece. And his response was, "That's brilliant. I think you should write it." And thus far, my writing has been a lot of extensive journaling and healthcare documentation.
Sure.
Right? Very detail oriented, very, well, maybe those two are in opposition to each other. Journaling, emotional, just bleh. There is no punctuation. The spelling is atrocious. My handwriting is not great. Very free form and informal. And then my other experience writing is very technical. In the healthcare world, it has to meet certain criteria for insurance billing and Medicare compliance and things like that. So,
do you follow the SOAP rules when you're writing?
Yes.
Excuse us, audience. This is a bit therapist to therapist here. We'll fill you out another day. But yes, sorry.
Well, and this is part of how Wendy and I really connected in our friendship, with her background in speech language pathology, my background in physiotherapy. And here we are on a podcast about writing.
Go figure.
Yes.
Sorry, Camie, I interrupted you. Please carry on.
Oh, no, you're fine. So it has been a lovely and delightful challenge to develop a sense of self-esteem in myself, that I do have a 25-year history in healthcare where I curate people's stories. And my job as a physiotherapist is to blend two worlds. I have all of the scientific background where it is best practice, evidence-based medicine, protocol-driven post-surgical rehabilitation. But none of that science matters if I can't connect it to my patient's story.
Yes.
And developing the confidence I have in molding two different worlds together through my experience in healthcare has helped propel me in this writing journey as I sit in front of my computer with the tears streaming down my face thinking, no one's going to want to read this. Or how do I help people see that I'm passionate about bringing these principles into their everyday lives?
Yeah. Ooh, tingly. Because I have to tell you, Camie, that my experience in the early days, particularly, we kind of called them physio-terrorists.
Yes, we have a reputation.
When I was, excuse me, interrupting it and sort of bringing in a little bit of personal history here. When I was finishing through high school and deciding what I wanted to be when I grew up, by the way, I've never grown up, physio was the most obvious. I wanted to be a doctor, didn't have the nous to do it. So, okay, what's next? Look at the allied health professions. Physio. I'm not enough of a bully. I actually remember saying that because my personal experience of physios were that they were bullies, not marrying that story which you're coming into with, and I'm going, oh, that would be far better. And I worked as a physio, as a speechy with a physio, with what we had a particular joint client who was a young child, and we went to this day nursery together. And this child would look at me and smile, and she'd look at Leslie and frown. And she was never sure which one to do. And Leslie said to me, how come you always get a smile and I get a frown? I said, because we have fun and you create pain. I don't like to think of it that way. No.
Yeah.
But this was a child who was profoundly physically disabled as well as intellectually. I'm sorry, I've interrupted you.
Oh, no, you're fine.
You're not fine. A physio-terrorist.
I love that we can have this connection on multiple levels, Wendy. Yes, as a physiotherapist, my reputation precedes me simply by the title of my license. But
the thing is, you've actually identified the fact that you're not imposing the science and this is good for you and therefore you will do it, because as we both know, you come into as you said, a vulnerable patient with that and they're going to go, nope, ain't doing it. And that's part of my understanding, is part of the reason that a lot of physios hit a brick wall, and the clients are what's the word, unresponsive.
Yes.
And don't see the progress that they could do. Yeah.
Well, and that's part of what drew me to this leadership training platform for whom I'm writing, is their driving principle is the power of connections and being able to bring people together. And we have lost some of that innate human nature where we are driven to connect. If you look at MRIs of our brain activity, and when we make connections with people, the reward centers of our brain light up like fireflies. And we've lost that. And there's many factors contributing to it. There's political discord. There is remote work situations, which has its place and has pluses and minuses. There is social media, which creates this artificial appearance of a connection, but it's so curated and rarely vulnerable that we've lost some of this human nature to connect with each other. And I just would encourage our listeners, if they feel that they are in a rigid professional silo or a rigid professional title, don't let that hold you back from pursuing an exciting new opportunity. And just because my license says physiotherapist, right? My journey here with my fellow man is and women, as cheesy as that sounds, I'm genuinely here to help people find their most happy and empowered pathway in their lives. And sometimes I do that with physiotherapy, where I help you get off the commode independently. And hopefully with my book, I can do that through my words and my awkward questions that ask you to examine connections in your life and what actions you can take to improve those as well.
Okay. I'd like to come on to talking a bit more about your book in a minute, but I want to take you back in time. What prompted you to start writing in the first place? Now, okay, well, we all started writing around the same time, sort of physically around sort of 4 or 5, when we started to learn to write. But I'm going, what prompted you to start realizing that this writing thing is good? I like it. I'm good at this.
Well, I will be honest, I am still developing the confidence where I can say I am good at this. So I'm very, very vulnerable here. As a child, I was a voracious reader. When my mother would make us go to the library every Friday over summer holiday, it was my favorite day because I could load up on books, and books are my friends. And I was a socially awkward child, and I would start reading. And in my mind, it was my duty to finish that story, to free that character from being locked in that place in time. If I did not finish that book, Harry Potter would be stuck under the stairs. Like, it was my duty to free them and help them move forward in their story. These characters in these books were my friends, and they were very real to me. And I think my writing is an extension of my love of reading. And then, as navigating the ups and downs in life, navigating domestic abuse.
Yeah.
And the mental health issues that come along with that. For a number of years, my journaling has been very comforting and validating.
Get it all out.
And getting it all out and seeing the words. And just as I was a little child, reading Island of the Blue Dolphins or Strawberry Patch Girl, and feeling like I needed to read their story to free their character to move forward, I realized that in my journaling, in my amateur writing, I was freeing my own character, like me as the main character in my life. I was freeing myself to move forward and see things more clearly.
Oh, I love that. I've just gone goosey. Oh, that's wonderful.
Okay.
I really love the idea that you, as a child, took on I've got to let them free.
I do.
And that, really powerful. Thank you, Camie, because as a child, I didn't enjoy reading.
Interesting.
For some reason, I decided that reading was what you did at school.
And
so I didn't read before I got to school. And my mother, who was a first primary teacher, kindergarten through primary, thought she had a backward reader on her hands. Bear in mind, this is the 60s. Backwards reader. But okay, so that was it. No, I'll do it when I get to school. And I did. And then I suddenly stopped reading. And the teacher was a bit concerned about me and had this conversation with Mum in the staff room. She's taught in the same school, but further up. And Mum went, well, yes, Madam here has worked out that people who don't read so well get more attention.
Oh.
Because my mother knew me so well.
It just proves there are different types of intelligence.
Exactly.
And emotional intelligence and awareness of reward systems in your structure is an astute form of intelligence.
At 4.
Wendy, I want to point out you have mentioned that you're a word nerd. And I have heard you use this phrase a couple of times in our conversation. Clearly, I'm American. We have our different colloquialisms. But I have heard you say goosies.
Yes.
When we share something powerful. And in America, we call them goosebumps.
Goosebumps, yes.
And I think goosies is much more adorable. And so I'm going to ask your permission to weave that into my vernacular. It is heretofore known as goosies in my sphere because I think that is way cuter. Oh, goosies.
It's for me, I mean, they are known as goosebumps in the UK.
Oh, they are. Okay.
For me, I take it to the goosies because it's that wave of feeling. And for me, it literally is a wave. It starts at my shoulders and just goes all the way down my body. Like, beautiful, beautiful.
I love it. Goosies.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was what prompted you to start writing. So you were journaling through your teenage years, and
Yes.
As you point out, the dichotomy between the academic writing / clinical writing and the creative writing. I've had a number of guests over the time who've said, well, academia knocked the joy of writing out of me because it just sort of took the soul out completely. And they've come back to it after they've left academia. And you're managing to maintain both at the same time. So that's a wonderful juggling act. Hats off to you, girl. Fabulous.
It's exciting. It's
exciting. You get to explore your writing styles, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So tell us about your speaking journey, because that okay, I'm going to backtrack a minute for the book.
Fine.
Tell us about your book. So this published book that's come out this year, 2024. Sorry, we're recording this in 2024. It will be aired in 2025.
Yes.
So tell us about this book.
Well, this book is called My Mosaic: Broken Pieces and Masterpieces.
Oh.
And thank you. Did we just get goosies?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good. And it is a hybrid of a storytelling approach to teaching some fundamental principles of connection.
Right.
It is also a self-guided journal that asks the weird questions, challenging the reader to insert themselves in these principles and these stories and see where they can make that connection to this principle in their life. And then also to play on the mosaic theme, it has some beautiful graphics that are that adult style coloring book.
Have you got a copy with you?
We're still working on the graphic design piece.
Oh, okay.
So what I have with me right now here, that's kind of sitting here as my guiding star as I share this book with you, is just the very boring, just the content, just the written content. So we're working on the magic of the artwork right now. And
so has this book been published yet?
Not yet. It's on track to be out latter January, early February. Again, that's kind of dependent on this graphic design piece. I'm choosing, as much as I'm a detail-oriented person and deadlines, and I am challenging myself to have a soft target for the publish date and allow the work to be beautiful, as opposed to a firm deadline where I might shortcut some of the things that are important to me. Yeah. So when I was in peak crisis mode, leaving my abusive relationship, God or the universe or Mother Earth or whatever spiritual paradigm to which you subscribe kind of plopped me in the care of a New York Times bestselling author who also has created this group called Author Ready. It's run by Richard Paul Evans. You may know him, Christmas Box House fame and other writings. And it is a think tank for authors. And I was in peak trauma. I was in the depths of the lowest of self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And I sat in on one of the mentorship meetings they ran. And the only question I remember from that hour, because I did not have the brain bandwidth to really focus, the one question they asked was, or the comment they made, the mentors made, was, write the book for the one. Write your book for the one. Who is the one person that needs this book? And I thought, I need this book because I need some help and guidance, but I need it in small, palatable, bite-sized pieces. But when it is too hard to think, or it is too hard to feel feelings, I need to disassociate, and I need to get out my colored pencils, and I need to color, and I need to let the words and the principles kind of, simmer until then I can actually have the courage to answer these questions in my own life.
Oh, I love it.
Because I was not mentally, when I was in that period of crisis, I could not, people kept and well-meaning and lovely intentions kept sending me these self-help books and survive your life and create a new life. And here's 350 pages and 10 steps. And I would try to read them and I didn't have the mental bandwidth for it. So then I would sit and I would color, but that helped me calm down my nervous system and my fight and flight and my cortisol and all of those things, but it didn't give me anything actionable. And so that really helped refine what I was trying to do with this book. As far as we have self-help books and we have coloring books and we have guided journals, but let's smush them all together, because that's what I could have used when I was in crisis. And this book, My Mosaic, it examines the idea that just like a stained glass window, from far away looks like a masterpiece, but up close, it is literally broken pieces of glass that are soldered or connected together with intentional energy. And I tell the story of the stained glass at the Cathedral of Notre Dame in relation to the fires in 2019.
Yes.
But I also share a story about a stained glass window in a small church in rural southern Utah.
Okay.
And how both of these windows, one famous, one anonymous, what's a good word for that? I want to say ignominious, but is that even a word? I don't know where that's coming from.
It is, but that usually has a negative connotation.
Oh, okay. No, I don't want it negative. Humble. One very famous, one very humble.
Nice.
But the stories of both of these stained glass windows are that over time they've been threatened or damaged. Sometimes internally by the structure of the building in which they're housed, sometimes externally by fires or other forces.
Yeah.
But both of these stained glass windows have communities that are willing to put the investment in to repair, to restore, to polish, to protect, to save. And that's what I want people to take from this book, that if your life is beautiful and it can be sparkly and it can be shiny, but let's be real, it's going to be damaged.
Yeah.
There will be fires. There will be sonic booms. There will be issues that are within your control and issues that are outside of your control.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to rebuild a broken story or rebuild a masterpiece, let me help you with this idea of connections, where you can put those pieces back together and continuously rebuild your masterpiece.
Yes, with intention.
With intention.
Oh, so good, so good. Pulling in your point about the mosaic, have you been to Paris?
I have. I'm fortunate to have been twice.
Well, I went once, very many years ago, as a 8-year-old, so very many years ago. And we went into Notre Dame, which was incredibly dark.
Mm.
And the only light, because I don't know what it's like now, but it was a huge barn of a Gothic cathedral, which was very, very dark. And the only real light that came in was through the rose window, that famous rose window. And that same day we went to Sacré-Cœur in Montmartre. And as you walk in, and I've just gone goosey remembering it now, the apps at the far end. Audience, if you've never been there, Google these images. As you go in, I mean, for one thing, it's a white building. So it's immediately light on the outside because it's a more modern building. It's not the old Gothic one that Notre Dame was. And as you walk in, the apse at the far end is of a mosaic of Christ the King. So much light and gold, and because it's a light, airy building, that just hits you. For me, the contrast was phenomenal. I would love to go back to Paris now and see what they've done with Notre Dame in terms of the restoration. But absolutely, those mosaic pieces. I used that as a metaphor for a lady that I was working with. I wasn't working with her. I was a friend of hers. She had a brain cancer and she was dying. And she said, I don't understand why I'm going through this. I said, no, neither do I. But the point is, the high points of your life, the light bits of your mosaic, only really show up in contrast to the dark tiles, the dark bits of glass. And she went, oh, that was not my idea. Because when the words came out of my mouth, I'm going, oh, where did that come from? That was good. But yes, it's that putting together with intention. And I love that. I really love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
So this book is coming out early part of the new year.
Early 2025, yes.
Sure.
My advisors are asking me to target the New Year's resolution cliff.
Yes.
That period of time, I'm not going to be able to get it out in time for a January 1st New Year's resolution buyer. But it is there for those who maybe started their New Year's resolutions off with great intent and great vision and great energy, and then something broke their mosaic. And
17th.
They need
17th of January is Resolution Canyon Day.
Yeah, Resolution Canyon. Yes.
Where things just drop in.
Yes. So I don't think I'll get exactly the exact date of Resolution Canyon, but the intent is there to catch the readers that are looking for a kinder, gentler approach to self-improvement that fits in bite-sized pieces that they can weave into their own life.
Well, audience, isn't this really good that this podcast airs just before Resolution Canyon Day? Now, if you haven't seen this podcast before, audience, let me tell you about my dynamic show notes. When I have a guest who comes back and says, oh, by the way, I've got something new coming out. I've got a podcast I'm appearing on, or I have my own podcast, or I've got a program I'm setting up. Then we go in and change the show notes. And I do a quick social splash going, do you remember that wonderful conversation I had with Camie Hodlmair? Well, look what she's got now. And we change it. And then if they have a new book coming out, I go, come hither. Let's have you on another episode. So that's how the show notes work. So audience, you realize that this podcast is being recorded in advance of the book publication. So if you're working on something, you need to get onto podcasts ahead of publication to ping it into people's minds so that when you've got publication date, they go, oh, I saw that podcast. I heard that podcast. How do I get hold of the book? It's in the show notes. Love it. So we got your speaking, how you started with your writing. Tell us about your speaking work.
Well, again, I am very new to this sphere and working to build the confidence that my ability to speak to small groups will help me translate to being able to speak to larger groups. Our company, avec-me, provides keynote speaking services, more informal lunch and learn, lunchtime in-servicey kind of messaging, as well as full day and half day workshops. But to share the word and share our passion and love for this, I have a few speaking engagements that I've completed and things that are in the hopper, because this concept of connection is universal. And so recently I just spoke at a convention that was held in Washington State, and it was the Association of Student Body Leaders for the state of Washington.
Okay.
And it was a group of about 300 high school age students who were in various leadership roles in their school. And I had to pivot a little bit to make sure that I could connect with a teenage audience.
Yes.
The good news is I have 4 children, ages 16 to 22. And so I was able to run some of my ideas across with them. I am also speaking at some local events coming up where we have an organization here called Utah Women Run that helps mentor female candidates looking to enter the political sphere. Okay. And so I believe in this message, and I believe that there is a wide audience that could benefit from that. And so I am speaking at I have an opportunity to speak this coming January. And it will be kind of a panel discussion where the other guest is going to be speaking on the systemic approaches and best practices for political involvement. Okay. And then I'm providing the perspective of, here is the one-to-one interpersonal approach. Each one has their place, right? Best practice with political campaigns would say your time is more efficient and best spent on the phone, robocalling. You get more bang for your buck, more people for your time. And there's a time and a place for that, absolutely. But also, do you have the interpersonal skill set if you're making those phone calls and someone actually answers the phone and wants to have a conversation with you?
It does happen.
It does happen. So, we are told that maybe door-to-door canvassing is not the most effective use of your time in a political campaign, but there's a time and a place for that. And being able to speak with someone on their front porch and hear what's important to them about their community. Having a broad skill set as a political candidate, which also translates if you are a CEO or if you're a healthcare provider or if you're an entrepreneur.
And one of the biggest skills you need is to listen. Because out on the hustings, boy, are you going to get some feedback. Yes, absolutely. Do you call them hustings?
Describe.
On the campaign trail?
What was that?
On the campaign trail?
What? I don't think I'm familiar with that phrase.
Hustings, right. This is a UK term, definitely a British term, where when you're out canvassing, you might have small community opportunities to speak to small groups. Hustings, as in people coming together and almost like hustling.
Oh, I like that.
There might be debates. So like you get in the US presidential elections, you get the 2 candidates having a big televised thing. That would be the most extreme of hustings.
Yes.
The most extreme. But usually it's on a more local level.
Yes. Yeah. We refer to them as meet and greets or cottage meetings, but yes.
Thank you for asking, because this isn't again, audience, you're experiencing the lost in translation. We speak the same language, kind of. So if you're ever in a position where you're speaking to somebody and you don't quite understand what they're saying, do have the courage to ask, because you'll learn a new word and you'll see whether or not your idea of what they're saying matches their idea of what they're saying. Just saying.
Yeah.
Love it. So that's the book. It's coming out in the first quarter of, and ideally the first month of 2025.
Mm-hmm.
We've spoken about your wonderful speaking journey, and part of your role as a physiotherapist, you are speaking to other people in that role?
Yes, in my career in healthcare, there's been multiple opportunities to speak at conventions, to be interviewed by the local news, opportunities such as that have helped. I didn't realize it at the time, but have helped develop these skills as I take a career pivot here.
Well, that's the thing. Stages are not just the raised platform with a microphone in your hand. As I said in the introduction, one-on-one conversations can lead to podcasts. For those people who are watching this and going, I could never do the stand-up on stage thing. I mean, I'm not rah, rah, rah like Tony Robbins. I go, well, good.
Yes.
He does him, you do you. But for some people, the podcast is the stage that they are comfortable-ish with. It's where they're most comfortable with. There are people who are in networking meetings. That's a stage. There could be the virtual summits that you've explained about, which you've also appeared on. Those are stages, and those have come to the fore since COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not going away, because that's your opportunity to connect with people literally across the globe without hopping on a plane. So you don't have the time zone confusions, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And then, if you wish to, you can get onto a stage. You've mentioned keynoting. You've mentioned panel discussions. Those are all different forms of public speaking. There's also things like MC. Now, if your audience, if you're a bit of an introvert, the thought of being an MC is probably going, not a chance. You don't have to. What I'm saying is there are different forms of public speaking. They are complementary, but also different skill sets required.
Mm-hmm.
So I love how that you've managed to pull in all these elements together in your speaking career. Go you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So as we're kind of winding up, I'd love you to tell us, how do you embody your words when you take them from page to stage?
I think maybe the best way to answer that is to go back earlier in our conversation when you shared the stereotype that physiotherapists are sometimes known as physio-terrorists. In my natural personality, in my work in healthcare, I am often told that I'm very mean, but they don't realize it because I do it with a smile and a giggle.
Love it. You're not mean. You're actually connecting with them and giving them the skills that they need to get better.
Yes. Yes. So I think when I am teaching people the principles of connection through my book and through my speaking, some of the questions can be a little challenging and a little direct, but they're shared with a smile or a giggle or love and kindness. And I hope that both in my work as a physio, but my work as in this leadership training platform and with my writing and with my speaking, is that I convey a genuine concern and love and kindness with the hope this weird question or this uncomfortable exercise is going to help you get to the goal you want to create for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, another goosey moment. Brilliant. You may or may not be familiar with the Maya Angelou quote, people will forget what you've said, they'll forget what you've done, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And that sense of connection that you're having with people, even as you are sharing, this may hurt, but you know what? At the other end of your pain, you're going to get so much relief, because you will be able to do all the things that you've already stated that you want to do. And you're giving them that, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
so glad that things have moved on dramatically since my early days. That was a long time ago.
Well, advances in surgical techniques and patient awareness has definitely made my job more delightful and a lot less terrorist driven. So,
and I think also the fact that the training for physios has
yes,
also improved. There's
yes,
a lot more of the less of the school marmish and more of the let's do this together.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. The collaborative approach to healthcare is still evolving, but is very, very necessary.
Well, isn't it just because, I mean, when I was first starting life, if you were attached to in a hospital, you were kind of under the consultant, and the consultant was the gatekeeper and assumed that you were part of their team, and therefore you would do as they directed. Okay, sorry, independent clinician here.
Yeah.
Just saying. But I was not well liked by some of the consultants because I advocated vociferously on behalf of my clients.
Oh, vociferously. Ah, excellent word.
That is a good one, isn't it?
Love. Love.
Yes, I was known as a bit of a terrorist in the other direction, but that's another story which I'm happy to share with you off camera, I think.
I would love that.
Okay, so we've looked at how you started writing, that importance of getting it all out there, and also the connection perspective that you're bringing to this piece, your wonderful book, because you're getting both the content and the reflection time in the actual doodly drawing, colouring in bit. And isn't that really helpful to take that time out to process without the need for verbals? Because as you said, your bandwidth at that point is, oh, can't handle any more conscious thought. It's really letting it bed in and get into your heart. I love that. And then you can go on and do the journaling, which means that you can then go, right, pulling on your thoughts of Harry Potter. You couldn't possibly leave him under the stairs. Put yourself in that position. And how am I going to get out from under the stairs? Love it. Beautiful. Have you got any final words of wisdom for us as we wind up?
Oh, well, words of wisdom. I feel like I'm very much a novice, and I don't know if I have words of wisdom necessarily to share. But I do want to share the idea that those facing personal struggles, you can create a beautiful new life.
Yes.
And do not let other people put you in a silo or in a gate or a fence. And don't let yourself stay there. If you find a passion or a love or a talent, pursue it. And don't let yourself be held back if your education or your license is telling you who you are. I've alluded to my escape from an abusive relationship. And when I was first approached with the invitation to write this book and join this project, I came home, I told my partner at the time, I was so thrilled. I'd been invited to do something, and I believe in myself. I think I might be good at this. I have all these ideas, and I'm firing on all cylinders, and my energy is so high. And my partner at the time told me, why would anyone ask you to write a book? If you write a book, then I'll write a book, and my book will cancel out everything you have to say.
And you have walked away from that.
I have walked away from that. And maybe my word of wisdom is that if there are people or dynamics or forces in your life that are threatening your mosaic, that are threatening to cancel out what you are trying to create, then maybe that's not the space for you.
Oh, thank you. That is another goosey.
Goosies.
you've done pretty well today, girl. I've lost track of how many. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Camie, for
Wendy,
sharing
thank
your
you.
From Page to Stage. Thank you.
Thank you.
For us, bye for now.